marathon.
Will we just start?
Um, I guess wait, here, let me give a little intro before we just dive right in. All right, we have a special segment right now. We're doing a follow-up to our episode with Owen Everard from episode 261. We got an interesting question from a listener named Danny, who emailed me and said, I could entirely relate to all Owen had to say about neuromuscular athletes. I'm very speed oriented, and I found everything he said to be true related to familiarity and practice with race paces. And her question is essentially, how can or should we approach marathon training differently for a neuromuscular athlete? Any considerations we should think about? Any workout modifications that would make a lot of sense? What do you think, Owen?
Jason, thanks a million for having me back. I'm back like I forgot something, so I'm delighted. Excited for a second bite of the cherry. Yeah, I would. So for someone who's going to be a neuromuscular runner, I think that what generally you'll see is that like long continuous running can be an issue. So like say where normal marathon preparation might have, you're just constantly increasing your long run, and that long run being um, basically easy, and then maybe a session in the week, or the long run being that continuous run. I feel that for the neuromuscular runner, generally anyway, I do this, but it's probably because of the background I come from, being a kind of neuromuscular runner, that have a 2 week cycle, and that if on one, say Saturday or Sunday, you do a long run, the following week should be like a workout within the long run, and the long run should be shorter. So that way you're kind of hitting the thing that you're good at, and seems to get better benefit as we go. So for example, you might have, say, instead of someone doing like a 2 hours 30-minute run, you might do a 2 hour run, but in that then you might do 45 minutes easy, and then you'll do 45 minutes of, say, 10 minutes at marathon pace, 5 minutes easy for 45 minutes. And then you might do 20 minutes after that at like 45 seconds at like, say, 10K type of feel, not like 10K pace, but that 10K feel, and 75 seconds like steady, not like complete jog, but nearly back to what the 45 minutes easy pace would have been. And then a mile easy recovery, making up your 2 hours. So, okay, you're not getting the same distance, but you're getting used to running marathon pace when you're a bit tired. And I feel like that will kind of help the person more as they go, or you might do, as it progresses, even if you're doing, say, 16, 17 miles, you might just do 7 or 8 miles easy, 6 miles where 1 mile is at marathon pace, 1 mile is at like an easier pace for 6 miles. And then you might have 1 mile of like fartlek afterwards, again, like 45 on, 75 off, with a mile easy. So for the neuromuscular runner, I feel like it's a better idea to have like basically a 2 week block as opposed to like a 1 week block. And in that, every second week be a kind of modified long run session, long run workout, rather than constantly looking at just increasing the mileage, because she'll probably feel that that doesn't really work for her, or she'll probably get more injuries doing that type of work because of the duration, and that aerobic work will be harder. Where if she puts in a kind of modified workout, she'll get away with doing less time on feet for a lot of the runs, and get better benefit, would be my experience.
Yeah, this seems like a really good way to approach modifying the long run so that it works for a more neuromuscular oriented athlete who might struggle with some of those longer, 18, 20 plus mile long runs just at your normal easy pace. So what we're essentially doing is sacrificing a little bit of volume, a little bit of
Yes.
time on feet for that quality. And that's going to hit those neuromuscular runners' strengths and avoid what they're not good at, which is just more of that easy, longer distance running for hours and hours. Now, Owen, should there be any difference to the midweek workouts? We talked about the long run, but how would you approach, the faster training session during the week for a more neuromuscular athlete training for a marathon?
I actually don't change that much, to be fair. The people would do roughly the same because I feel like even for the aerobic runner, um, they they should be doing some kind of interval work during the week anyway. Now we're not talking like 10k work, for example. Like let me just bring one up so I can talk through it. Like you might have they'll all do like say 40 minutes of fartlek with 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off. Like so it's still a longer session. That would be say smack in the middle of um smack in the middle of marathon training. 10 minutes 10 by 3 minutes of LT, like lactic threshold work, or 5 by 7 minutes at like marathon pace or marathon heart rate with like a minute off recovery, with 15 minutes of a jog, 15 minutes of cool down. That way we're all getting like say maybe some strides and like a couple little drills before your training session. And as you said, like have that one interval session be an interval session for everybody. Like even though you're a neuromuscular athlete, you're still doing a marathon, you're still running 26 miles. So it's not like you're a neuromuscular athlete who has to be doing 10k training. Like 10k is 6 miles, so it's not going to be beneficial. You still have to get the distance. And then for the aerobic runner, running economy is still a big issue. So you don't want to just be doing your long run or progressive long run on the weekend and then also just like a long run on a Wednesday. You do want to keep some of that running economy in there so that marathon pace feels easier, or you're at least accustomed to marathon pace. So I find that the only real variation I feel will be modifying like every second week, or you could modify every 2 out of 3 weekends for the neuromuscular runner. So where the aerobic runner could do maybe just one long run, and the neuromuscular runner does one long run. The next week, the neuromuscular runner's training session would be like one of the ones we discussed there. The aerobic runner might have like a progression run that's longer. So say like if you're near your end, like you have the Dublin Marathon coming up here in 3 weeks, so say 3 4 weeks out, theirs could be a 3 hour progressive long run from like easy to mid to like marathon, or a little bit quicker than marathon pace, say for the last hour, compared to the neuromuscular athlete being a 2 hour 30 run, where, as we said, maybe like uh, 7 or 8 miles are easy, 6 miles are kind of marathon pace, and 1 mile of like on offs with a mile cool down, um, just to adapt it. So yeah, I don't think the middle workout needs to be adapted for either.
Okay, so you would keep the middle workout the same. That's
Yeah.
that midweek faster training session. You would cut out some of the longer, just easy long runs and instead include some quality, marathon pace, 10K pace, something like that. What about overall weekly mileage? Would the neuromuscular athlete want to maybe sacrifice total mileage and maybe do a second workout during the week? Or would they just benefit from slightly less mileage overall? How would you think about total mileage for this type of runner?
I think with total mileage, because we're not elite runners, so I'm not thinking of like a very elite marathoner. Now that might differ, but but I'm thinking of just our general, maybe like a 3 hour 30 minute marathon runner. Roughly that, maybe 3 hours, maybe four, maybe even 2:30, but anything up to that. I feel like we should only be doing 2 workouts in the week anyway. So Wednesday, and then if we're doing like say the long run, um, so I don't think I would sacrifice the mileage. As I said, the mileage might look different. So for the neuromuscular runner, the mileage will be got through say, um, so we could have like rest day Friday, or ideally like, but this kind of works best for people because they're off on the weekends. So say ideally you would do workout Friday, maybe rest day Saturday, and then your long run Sunday, if that was a normal one. And then the following week, where we're saying we're putting in a bit of quality into the long run, the workout would be that 2 hour run, and then just do like 70 minutes the next day, or 60 minutes, and you've built that up over time. So you're still getting the mileage in. It mightn't be as much, but the only real difference in the mileage will be that, like, you won't have this longer run. So rather than doing 18 miles, you've done 15. But then the next day you've done, maybe 9 miles or 8, 9 miles as an easier run. So like I would still keep the runs in there, but we wouldn't have excessively long runs, and we're still getting that bit when you're tired with the longer runs, say in the modified long run, so the long run workout. Because the long run workouts, like, say you're still doing a 2 hour run there, or you still could be, as we're getting closer to the marathon, you're still doing like a 16 or 17 mile run, and then you might have one 3 hour run, just easy, but that's like getting used to fueling, and that would be you peaked out. Do you know what I mean? So like, rather than having a lot of different runs, it would be maybe a 16, 17 mile with a workout, and then the following week it could be like 3 hours of time on your feet, but that's you done. You haven't been doing like, say, 240, 250, 3 hours, because I feel like that'll break you down more than have some quality. Try one like time on feet one, and just keep it that going that way. Does that make sense, or was that a bit waffly? Do you get what I'm saying there?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. It sounds like you really just want to cut out the longest run of the week. So the
Yeah.
long run. And then you don't really want to sacrifice total weekly mileage. You can kind of make it up the next day. So, in other words, you might have, instead of a 3 hour run on Saturday and then a 30-minute run on Sunday, you might have a 2.5 hour run with some quality work in it on Saturday, and then an hour run on
Yes,
Sunday. So you're
that's
sort of
exactly it.
shifting either the mileage or the time running to the next day. And this is actually a great strategy, I think, for marathon runners. It's sort of borrowing from the ultra runner playbook, where they do back-to-back long runs. And, there's some structure they put in there. But it's the same idea, where if instead of just a pure recovery day, you're doing a fairly long run of maybe an hour, maybe 75 minutes the day
Yes.
after a long run, it can somewhat mimic doing a longer run the day before. So I see a lot of value in that approach.
Yeah, that's it. And like, it's also remembering, like, you're still doing a long run. Like, it's not like you're still doing maybe 13 to 15 to, like, your peak kind of workout might be 16 or 17 miles, depending on how you're feeling, with, like, as we said, 7 or 8 miles easy, 6 miles steady. So it's not like we haven't got up closer to marathon pace, but it's like just focusing on your strengths and kind of going from there. And as you
Yeah,
said,
for
adding
sure.
the extra mileage in after that.
Well, Owen, this was really helpful as we try to understand how to apply this way of thinking about two different types of runners to a race that, at first impression would really optimize for that aerobic runner. Who's going to be good at the marathon? Aerobic runners. But of course, neuromuscular runners are going to want to run marathons at some point. So this is a really helpful way of thinking about how they can modify their training. So thanks for coming back on the podcast. I know this was a little bit of a bonus appearance, a little
I
bit
was
of
delighted. I was
a
delighted to be
follow
on.
up, but this was really fun.
Great. Yeah. Anyone, everardpilates.com/book. If you want to, I have how to get to the line in the best shape possible, if people want to check that out. Thanks a million for the question. And as you said, I think the key thing here is that it's not ignoring the training that needs to be done. What we're not saying here is like, oh, Danny, do 10K training and hope you'll be okay for the marathon. It's just slight tweaks can be made, so you're doing a little bit more race specific pace, and that can work for anything up to a marathon. So it was actually great to clarify that for people. And if they have other questions, I'd love to be back on again.
Yeah, for sure. And for anybody who missed this full discussion, you can go back to episode 261 and hear Owen and I really geek out in more detail on aerobic versus neuromuscular runners. Thanks for your time, Owen.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. We had a quickie one today.
Can you just check my, because your thing was going up and down,
What was going up and down?
your volume, but I don't know if mine was going up and down. You could hear me
Oh,
fine though, could you?
yeah. It looked like it looked like it was okay.
Okay, brilliant. And look, if there's any issues, just let me know. We can do it again. That was good.
Oh, I hope not.